Hi everyone and welcome to this week's WARNO devblog. It's a little bit short this week, so we'll get straight to the point. They say hello, it's good to be back, and we are happy to see the positive and constructive feedback on our latest milestone, WARNO. Of course, UGen team has never finished tinkering, improving and rebalancing WARNO, and we take all comments to heart. We also have to thank you, the player community, for their heartwarming messages and words of encouragement. Let's keep making WARNO great together. Now, the unit traits were one of the major new elements introduced in WARNO. Seeing the success, we decided to introduce a couple of new infantry units, as well as expand the trait system to vehicles. Keep in mind, most of what you will read here is still work in progress. So first up are the new units and their traits. So as mentioned before, they are planning some new infantry units to take advantage of the other new unit traits. Now you can check out a detailed list in the previous devblog, but the Warsaw Pact nations have no units with the military police trait, for example. This is due to these armies not having a single large dedicated military law enforcement organization, similar to what NATO does. Now, they were usually spread across different functions, such as traffic control, rear security, etc., and as a result, these type of units don't appear in any divisional table of organization and equipment. The above made identifying a suitable unit harder but not impossible, and after some diligent research, we found some fitting counterparts to NATO military police. For the Soviets, they are the, and allow me to butcher this, the Komendatura, or the Commandant Service Troops, which are easily identifiable by their sci-fi white and red helmets and the letter K patch embroidered on their sleeves. They also still retained the older UAZ 469, and they will take this opportunity to make a special in-game skin for this Jeep, as you can see on the screen now. The East Germans will get the, and again I'm going to butcher this I think, but the Militärstreife. It's a German word with I and E, or E and I, and in English we do it the other way around, so it always confused me. So, a few nations also lack the GSR trait, the Ground Surveillance Radar Unit. Now, these recon units are equipped with the portable radar, such as the American AN-PPS-5B or the Soviet PSNR-5. The Soviet Spetsnaz GRU and the East German Special Avklara units will be reworked to accommodate them. This means that only the French would then be left without a GSR unit. As such, they created the new Dragons Paras squad to feature it. The 13E Dragons Parachutists were the French First Army's LRRP unit. And the last thing to mention here are the new two-men sniper teams that will have the sniper trait and will be added to all nations. And they've got this lovely tiny picture silhouetting all of the sniper rifles and say, can you recognize them all? Feel free to list them in the comments if you can. And now we are moving on to the new unit traits themselves that they're planning to add on top of the previous ones. So the first batch of unit traits has been well received by the community, and this series mostly concerns infantry. The next one will focus more on vehicles, and we are still designing and seeing how some of these traits would behave. So please keep this in mind. There are others that are not mentioned here, but they are being kept to themselves because they need to work out the feasibility before disclosing them. So the first one is EW. No, not something disgusting. EW stands for electronic warfare. And we would add this trait to EW aircraft, giving them an ECM area of effect. So this would entail that the plane would affect all radar units in its vicinity and inflict accuracy penalties to them, even if they are not targeting the electronic warfare unit directly. A case in point would be the recently and much discussed, we know, EF-111 Raven. Unarmed but with the EW trait, it would be a great opener to breach enemy air defense nets, rendering them more ineffective against any following bomber raid. And if it works as expected, could introduce the way for EW helicopters such as the EH-60A and the Mi-8 PPA. Next up, they're also talking about adding the Jammer. A unit with a Jammer trait would disrupt recon radar, the one getting exceptional optics level, and reduce their effectiveness to very good within the jamming unit's area of operations. And then finally, they're thinking of adding the smoke launcher trait, which is more just an identifier to show that a unit is capable of featuring a smoke grenade for defensive purposes. That's actually the end of the devblog, but I think I'll take a moment just to have a think about what they're talking about adding with these new unit traits. So the smoke launcher, that's a nice idea, it's just to give you a bit more information. The jammer, I don't know. The jammer feels a bit like adding another unit with another trait just to make things more complex than they already are. Are you going to be warned that your unit is being jammed? Are you not? Is there a point then to even taking the units with the radar on them? Because if you don't know if they're being jammed and then you don't know what you can see, what's the point in them? So I do think they need to explain exactly how they're going to implement that and make sure that people who have the radar units are going to be warned that they're being jammed. Otherwise, those units are now completely pointless because you'll never know if they're working or not. I don't know, jammer feels a lot like complexity for the sake of complexity rather than for a fun gameplay mechanic. Recon's already pretty bad in the game anyway, it's still something I don't think is quite there. And the electronic warfare stuff, it really depends how it's implemented and how they rework anti-air, but at the moment, denying an entire area that this plane flies over from being able to fire back in terms of radar AA, I assume, only, that's going to be very powerful when aircraft can already be very, very powerful. So I definitely would like more information on how that's going to function. But out of interest, what does everyone else think of these new unit traits, the electronic warfare and the jamming in particular? Do you think they're a good idea? Do you think they're bad? Do you think it'll depend on the implementation? Let me know in the comments below. I'm genuinely curious, and I'm sure Eugen will be looking at the comments to see what the feedback is. As ever, for those who are interested, I will be leaving in some pictures from their Instagram, for those who obviously don't have it. Otherwise, have a great weekend, everyone, and I'll see you all soon.